Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. So in the year 2024, I went to nearly 20 Comic-Cons across Oregon, Washington, and even one in Florida. So I thought that it would be fun and informative for people, especially in the Pacific Northwest, if I were to tell you my top 5 cons of 2024 and my worst 5 cons of 2024. A little background about how I rank things is I've been going to Comic-Con since 2015 when I was 14 years old, and I am a cosplayer. I started cosplaying the following year in 2016. I also have invisible disabilities which impact my experience at cons, and I do have to use accommodations. All of these things will factor into my personal thoughts on each con. Oh, and it's also worth noting I'm a huge supporter of local artists, and that is a huge thing that comes into play with couple of the cons that I'm going to be talking about as my worst 5. But let's start with the positive first. Let's start with the top 5. So these will be ranked in order. The first one is SakuraCon. SakuraCon happens in Seattle every year, and it always happens on Easter weekend. This was honestly the best experience at a con that I had this year. They have a very wide range of artists, and I always find the most unique art there, and I love the artists that they choose. I did my first panel this year at that con, and it went really well. They have some really great meetups, especially the person who runs the My Hero Academia meetups have them organized so well. It is organized down to a T. It is perfect. They also have really fun raves. The raves last all night long. It is amazing, and SakuraCon is of course my #1 spot for this year, which is actually surprising because the con that I normally give the #1 spot isn't getting it that year, but it is on the top 5 still. And now I'm not saying that SakuraCon is perfect. I think there was definitely some room for improvement. However, compared to all the other cons I went to this year, it was the best. The second one on here is Emerald City Comic Con, which is one that I have been going to since 2019. So Emerald City Comic Con is huge. It is seriously the biggest con that I go to every year. There are so many people that it can be really overwhelming. However, I personally really love it. I find that they have some really great artists, and I find that their exhibitor area is great as well. I find that their exhibitor area has so much unique and fun stuff that I always find there. Emerald City always gets really amazing guests, and the guests always make the experience such a memorable time for me. Now again, there is room for improvement, but I think that it's a really good con, and I think that their ADA is pretty good. The reason I'm a little hesitant to say it's perfect is because there was a little bit of mess with photo ops this year, but I think they were trying a new setup for photo ops that didn't work very well, so I'm hopeful that they will improve it for 2025. I applied for my first panel at Emerald City that I'm going to be organizing myself, and I just found out today that I got waitlisted, which sucks, but apparently there is a chance that I will be able to get a spot, and I will hear back about that by January 31st if I get a spot opens up and I get that. If not, I may host a meetup. I'm considering hosting a Harry Potter or Mario meetup, so head on over to my Instagram if you're curious about any of that stuff, because I will update if I end up hosting a meetup over there. The third one on the list is the one that I normally give the first place, and that is LeakyCon. I was a little hesitant to put it even on the top 5 this year because I felt like it was definitely a step down from previous years this year. So LeakyCon is very community based. You aren't going to find the biggest actors going there. You're not going to find the biggest artist alley and vendors area. However, the artists that are there are incredible, and you find some of the most unique Harry Potter merch that you will find anywhere in the world. And the guests that they invite are always so fun. They have a wide range of guests, and they have a lot that are regulars that regularly attend LeakyCon, and those regulars are so down to earth, and they connect with fans so much, and it's an experience unlike any other. And LeakyCon is the best con when it comes to ADA. They really understand people with disabilities, and they really put in every effort that they can to ensure that people with disabilities have the best experience. It is the only place where I've gone to a con after party, which is considered the Yule Ball or Esther Earl Ball at LeakyCon, and it's the only place where I've gone to the ball and seen people in wheelchairs and with physical mobilities dancing and having fun. I don't see that at other cons, so this con is so inclusive and unique, and it's also reclaimed the Harry Potter fandom for the fans, and it's a huge reason why I'm still in the Harry Potter fandom despite what the author is doing. Now LeakyCon did rebrand to EnchantyCon, so if you are looking to go to LeakyCon next year, you're not going to be looking for LeakyCon, you're going to be looking for EnchantyCon, and I will have information about every con that I mentioned linked down in the description below. The fourth one on this list is one that is so chaotic, but I always have such a great experience there, and that's CoofCon. CoofCon takes place at the Vancouver Mall. It's a free event unless you want to meet the celebrities, and meeting the celebrities is pretty cheap. I believe it was $30 this year to meet the 2 celebrities. I only ended up meeting one of the celebrities. I met one of the actors from Twilight, and it was so much fun, and the way that they have the autographing and meet and greet set up, the artists artists, what am I saying, the actors have such a long time to talk to you and genuinely like engage with you, and it is such a more like intimate and just fun experience meeting the guests compared to other cons, and it's so much cheaper. Now if you're looking heavily for artists, there is a lot less artists at CoveCon than at other cons. However, the artists are spread throughout the mall, so as you're walking throughout the mall between shops, you will see the artists there. I think the Vancouver Mall is also such a fun venue because there's so much to do there. I always have such a fun time at that mall. However, I only really go there for CoveCon because I live just outside of Portland, and so it takes me a little bit of time to get up to Vancouver. However, it is always one of my favorite cons to go to. The fifth one on this list is KomoriCon. KomoriCon is an anime convention that happens in Portland, and it is happening on Halloween weekend next year. This year I thought that the timing wasn't the greatest because it was literally the weekend after the election. I was like, this is gonna be chaos, but it actually went pretty good despite there being lots of drama this year. I feel like almost everyone I talked to at KomoriCon this year had some sort of drama that they were in the middle of, which is nothing to do with the con itself, but just to do with like people were all butting heads and stuff and having problems this year, which is again nothing to do with the con, so I'm not talking badly about the con for that. I think that the artists that they had there were incredible. They were some really great artists. I think KomoriCon really thrives with the fact that they have so much to do that isn't just artists and celebrities like other cons. Like there's a scavenger hunt, and I tried to do the scavenger hunt. I epically failed this year, but I feel like the scavenger hunt was really unique and fun to do. The panels can be super interactive. There is such a wide range of panels, but also there is escape rooms, which really caught my attention because I love escape rooms and I've always wanted to do one at a con. So those are my top 5 cons. They're the ones that I recommend. These 5 were in Seattle, Vancouver, and Portland this year. However, LeakyCon, which is now EnchantyCon, travels around. This is going to be in Missouri next year. Now onto the worst 5. So we're going to start from number 5 and go up to number 1. So once I get to number 1, that is going to be the worst con that I went to this year. So without further ado, let's get on into this. So number 5 on this list is Washington State SummerCon. So I've been going to Washington State SummerCon since I believe 2021, and they got some problems. So whoever runs the social media, which I believe is the owner of the con, is very passive aggressive in the comments and really rude. And I find that I've never seen a con with that rude of an interaction. Like I've definitely seen cons handle social media wrong. You will hear about one of those soon. However, Washington State SummerCon is just so rude to people who comment on their posts. So I like rarely comment on their posts. They also have really bad ADA accommodations. They've definitely improved over the years. So like the first year that I went to the con and I had a photo op. And I was with a friend, and they told me, your friend will wait in line for you. You're gonna go sit in this area away from everyone else, which that isn't accessible, because if I were to go to that con alone, I wouldn't have been able to get my photo op because I needed my friend to wait in line for me, which was ridiculous because it's not truly accessible. Because my friend is my friend isn't my support person, and disabled people shouldn't require a support person to get accommodations at cons. The second year I went, guess what happened? A staff member told me that a lot of people fake their disability, so he can't accommodate me. I have POTS. I was literally like, do you want me to like lay down and stand up and then you have to call the ambulance to come help me out? I just wanted an autograph. It's not that big of a deal to just help out with accommodations with an autograph. They've especially improved with autograph accommodations, I've noticed. They're still struggling with photo op accommodations though, because this year, as I was in line to get a little return time, because they're doing return times now, and that process goes really smooth, there was someone who was deaf, and he went over to the ADA booth and he was there before I was there. He was deaf and he was saying that he needs help with the photo ops because he can't get his photo op because they are calling the line numbers and there's no signing and no signaling that he can understand and hear. The 2 people working the ADA booth at the time looked at each other and laughed. They laughed at the fact that he needed accommodations for photo ops. That was incredibly ableist and incredibly humiliating for that man, and it made me incredibly angry. So that side of things is really bad. Washington State SummerCon also runs Washington State HorrorCon, and they also run Anime Washington. Anime Washington, I did run into problems with ADA this year as well because they didn't communicate well which one was the ADA door, so they kept sending me back and forth, and there was a long line to get in the building, and I communicated. I said, I can't get in there. I can't wait in that line. I was like, I need help getting into the building. And they seemed to not believe that I had a disability at first. They didn't tell me I was faking, but they seemed to not believe I had a disability, and it took lots of advocation before I was able to get into into the building for Anime Washington. So this whole company seems to struggle with accommodations for people with disabilities. The fourth one on this list is Geek Week PDX MiniCon. Now I get that it was their first year, but this was such a small event. There was some cool artists, but I felt like the artists were very niche in their interest. They also chose the Lloyd Center Mall as a place to host this one. This one is in Portland. Oh, and I forgot to mention Washington State Summer Con is in Puyallup. So they chose the Lloyd Center in Portland, Geek Week PDX MiniCon did. So the Lloyd Center is a dying mall. There is very little left to get people to go to that mall besides the fact that there is a theater closest to the mall and an ice rink in the mall. So it wasn't advertised well in the mall either. The mall is dead. Like, there's so many places to put up signs, but there wasn't signs, so it took a while for me to figure out where the artists were. And I feel like because of that, they probably suffered with not getting many people buying their stuff. It was also shoved into a dead part of the mall with no traffic at all. There is a few places where there is a little bit more traffic. There will be a few stores here and there where people are coming. However, where they put the artists was a dead place in the mall. Nobody was walking that area. So I worry that the artists didn't get enough money. I also feel like they could have had more artists, they could have had more interactive stuff, they could have been more clear on social media what was going on beforehand, because it took a while for this Geek Week event to announce their mini-con and when it would happen. So I feel like this one, since it was their first year, I'm giving them a little bit of grace, but however, it wasn't the greatest con, and honestly, my favorite part of this day was hanging out with my friend and going ice skating with her. Next one up is Fan Expo Portland, which is a con that I have very conflicted feelings on about supporting them in the future, and the reason why I'm still going to attend in 2025 and potentially future years is because of the artists that they have there, and also because there's rumors that Fan Expo is getting new management. This has not been confirmed, I've just heard it from a few friends, so I'm not saying this officially, I'm just repeating what I have heard. So essentially what happened with Fan Expo Portland, in case people aren't aware, I could rant about this for such a long time, is that Fan Expo decided to hold the event in January this year. So it was in January, and in January in Portland, we get snowstorms. Well, more accurately, we got an ice storm. So the first day of the con, we had no snow. However, there was non-stop cancellations of the guests because of the weather, and people were having a hard time making in from out of state, or even from southern parts of Oregon to get in. I talked to many artists who told me about their life and death experiences trying to get there because of the ice and snow on the roads on their way there. And what I mean about the guest cancellations happening so late is I mean that first day I dressed up as Deku because Justin Briner was supposed to be there. I showed up to the con had about 2 minutes until it was about to start. Guest cancellations and Justin canceled, and now I have heard that Justin cancels at a lot of cons, and I did try to meet him when I was in Florida. He did cancel on that. So they need to announce the guest cancellations earlier so that people can adjust their plans accordingly. Also, the ice storm was literally blizzard conditions. That is what they were calling it. The Saturday of the con, my friend and I tried to take public transit in because my parents weren't sure if they'd be able to drive us into the con. So we got driven to a TriMet station, a Max station. So we were going to hop on the train to get downtown, sort of like the subway. TriMet, Max, we call it Max here, you know? So we got to the Max station, we get down these icy stairs. We've had no word that the Max is canceled, anything like that. So we get down there and we are freezing our butts off. There is us and another group of people hid in this elevator and refused to let the elevator go up because we were all huddling there to avoid the wind chill. The wind chill was horrid, and that is part of the reason that it was considered blizzard conditions. Eventually, after standing in that elevator for such a long time and freezing our butts off, a TriMet worker came and said the Max can't get to this station because of the snow and ice. So we're gonna get some buses in, and you're gonna take the buses to downtown Portland, and you're gonna be dropped off at the Pioneer Courthouse Square, and the Max will pick you up from there because the Max can still make it to that stop. So the bus took us all the way to Pioneer Courthouse Square. Okay, we get to Pioneer Courthouse Square. We get out, my friend and I are freezing. We tried to layer up a little bit, but also we can't layer up too much because we're cosplayers. So we are waiting on Pioneer Courthouse Square. We were there probably 45 minutes to an hour before another TriMet worker came and said, sorry, the Max is fully shut down and canceled today because of the snow. So public transit was shut down, but it wasn't shut down in the morning. So if people went in the morning and relied on public transit, they couldn't get home. So people were literally stranded. We got there after like 4 hours because after like 3.5 hours, I said, F it. I am paying for a lift. I don't care how expensive this dang thing is. We eventually got to the con, but so many people had similar experiences, and people had experiences where they couldn't even make it into the con because of the snow and ice. Some people were only able to go Friday and saw the forecast and immediately had to rush back home to Washington or to other parts of the state. So Fan Expo should have canceled, but they didn't. For those that couldn't make it to the con, Fan Expo refused refunds. They wouldn't answer any questions about it at the con. However, after the con, they said, well, we can transfer your tickets to next year, or you can get credit to use in the store. Fan Expo needed to cancel this event, and they did not. And at the very least, they should have given refunds to the people who couldn't make it. My other problem with Fan Expo that doesn't have to do with the snowstorm is it's very much celebrity-based, and celebrity-based cons aren't my favorite. So they focus less on the artists and the community and the cosplayers and focus on getting those big name guests so they can get as much money as possible. If you've heard of the Ace Comic Cons, I went to like Ace Comic Con Seattle back in 2019. It's sort of that vibe of Comic Cons, but there is a little more artists than Ace. Accommodations are pretty good at Fan Expo, I will give them that. However, it isn't the best con. I am going to it this year because there is a bunch of guests that I want to meet. There's literally a list of like 20 guests I want to meet in 2025. It's bad. Now we are about to hit the final 2 cons on this list, and they are 2 cons that I will most likely never be going to again. You ready for this? Next up is Anime Impulse, specifically the one in Seattle. So Anime Impulse is a traveling con. It travels around, and it went to Seattle this year. I should have known that it wouldn't have been a good con when, as soon as they announced the like cosplay guests, I was like, oh, so we're inviting some problematic people. I'm not going to get into that more here because I don't want to specifically address the drama, but like there's some guests on that list that like there is a lot of local tea and drama on, and I was like, okay. So anyways, I get to the con, I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm gonna hang out with friends, it's gonna be great. I get there, there's a lack of security. Nothing was checked for me to get in. You literally could have got into that con without a badge. Huge problem. No bags were checked, nothing like that. I was like, okay, I already don't feel great. The security that was there didn't do anything to help people, because the big problem with this con, and the reason I don't want to go to this freaking con again, unless I'm going to go to hang out with a friend that I really like or a guest that I really desperately want to meet, is that security didn't do anything when you reported creepy men. And there was creepy men littering this whole con. I caught so many men taking pictures of me without consent. And I'm sure there was probably a few people who weren't men, but the majority that I saw were men. I snapped at one on the second day because I was so tired of it, and I said, if you want to take a picture of us, ask and we'll pose for you. Because he was snapping pictures of my friend while she was trying to talk with someone who she was just meeting for the first time. Now, we did report one of the men to security because this person was taking pictures of a cosplayer who's wearing a little bit more of a revealing outfit and interrupting a photo shoot and doing it from angles that weren't okay. Security didn't do anything because that person was reported the first day, and the second day the person was back doing the same thing. The after party was awful too because of creepy men, like so much worse. Like I am 99% sure that if I hadn't gone like this over my friend's drink when she was in the bathroom, I would have gotten her drugged, because like there was a guy who was walking back and forth past me when my friend was in the bathroom and I was sitting with her drink. And he was walking back and forth, and I got weird vibes, so I did the hand over the cup thing to prevent anything slipping in. He left the area completely, and I never saw him again for the rest of the night. So that's what I can tell you about the after party. It wasn't official, but I believe that the company who does this after party does a lot of Anime Impulse after parties. So keep that in mind if you are considering going to an Anime Impulse after party. I also find that Anime Impulse is, again, more celebrity based and less artists. Now, the celebrities there were fantastic, and they did make my experience really great. However, this con just has so many issues that I honestly don't think I'm going to be going again. Unless I have a friend that I desperately want to see that I rarely see who's going to Anime Impulse, that's the only reason I'll go. Otherwise, nope. Now, the one that I will most likely never go to again in my life, unless they sell the convention to someone else, is WasabiCon Portland. And I will be addressing what happened in Jacksonville as well this year, so all of you can understand that this isn't exclusive to Portland with this company having problems. So the problem with WasabiCon Portland is that they kept all the artists in a parking garage in the middle of summer with no ventilation. I was dying every time I went down there. I have an inability to sweat a ton. I mean, I've started to sweat some this year because my POTS has been changing a little bit, but generally I don't sweat as much as normal people. So when I'm hot, there was nothing to relieve me. I kept almost passing out. I felt like crap in that parking garage. And that was where they had the artists. Literally, the people that are supposed to earn their living from the cons, that keep the cons going because so many people go just for the artists. In these parking garages, there were also rats running around. I have a friend who personally had a rat run over their foot. So the staff also wasn't educated on ADA. Once I got to the con, I asked them how their ADA procedures worked, and they said, I don't know. So that person who said, I don't know, went up to the other staff person. The other staff person there said, I don't know, I guess just talk to the staff member that was at the like autograph area if I'm gonna get an autograph. And I was like, great, you guys aren't educated at all. Security also wasn't great. So as soon as I got there, they snatched a prop of my friend's. It goes on her shoulders. I was holding it just to support it. Clearly made of foam, not a weapon. They snatched it out of my hands to weapon check it. You don't take stuff like that out of someone's hand without consent. Cosplayers make their own stuff. My friend spent such a long time making her prop, and they just snatched it out of my hands without consent. And then security also wasn't checking badges to get into Artist Alley and the main convention space. You know the one time that they did check my badge? When I had to go pee. So on the second day, I left my badge with my backpack that was with my friend because, like, I was like, they're not checking badges and I just have to go pee. I went to the spot that I went the day before to go pee. Locked. So they locked us out of the bathrooms unless you're to go, like, through a security checkpoint. But the security checkpoints, they weren't checking the day before, so I'm like, they're not going to check me. I go up because I have to go pee. I have to walk up a bunch of stairs to get there. And they say, we can't let you use the bathrooms because you don't have your badge on you. And I said, listen, nobody has checked my badge before. You guys locked the bathrooms in the downstairs portion. I have to go pee. I had a fight with the staff, the security, to be able to go pee. That is the only time my badge was checked. The only time I ran into any sort of issue. And I think that's ridiculous. And those security, they weren't even in the like artist and like main convention area. They were by some panel rooms. Okay. And then the after party wasn't advertised as well. They had a bunch of strippers. There was boobs out, fully. No bra, no shirt, no anything. Okay. They didn't advertise well what was going to be there. So I walked into the room and saw boobs everywhere. Do you know how uncomfortable that makes me as an asexual person? And the thing that was killing me too is when you walk into the area, so on the floor, there's all ages events right here in this room. You walk maybe like 100 feet and that's where the after party is. So there wasn't enough separation between all ages events and this stripper after party. But there was also very much a lot of people who went to this con just for the stripper after party who clearly weren't there in the daytime and wore really pervy related t-shirts to go see some boobs, and it was extremely uncomfortable and not advertised well. Now what happened in Jacksonville is that the hurricane hit Jacksonville, Florida, the weekend that the con was supposed to happen. So a couple days, I think it was less than 48 hours before the con started, WasabiCon was like, Jacksonville is being moved to the next week. Everybody had already bought their tickets. The artists had bought their like plane tickets. A bunch of people were already in the city. They couldn't change their plans. And WasabiCon was like, yeah, no, we're closing down because of the hurricane. Makes sense, but you knew the hurricane was coming way in advance. You needed to cancel way in advance. But even though they were canceling the event for the safety of the attendees, they held many pop-up events all over the city. So different bars and different locations had little events. So they were still encouraging people to leave their homes in the midst of a hurricane to go do things. Then they moved the actual WasabiCon Jacksonville to the week after, which I believe was Thanksgiving weekend. So the people who had already flown in and had already arrived for the con were screwed because they're not going to just necessarily stay there another full week unless they can afford it. So they did not handle Jacksonville well at all. They did not handle Portland well at all. Oh, and one thing to mention with Portland is a bunch of artists requested refunds. So they ended up sending out this survey to artists. Now, not all of the artists got this survey. The majority did, but some have spoken up about how they did not receive the survey. In the survey, it said, what do you think is a fair refund, if any? Whatever price you put on there, whatever like percentage of what you paid was how much you got. So some artists put, I don't think we need refunds, and some put, we need 100% refunds. The cons did whatever you put into that survey. So they should have been honest about that beforehand, and I believe they should have set a fair percentage to refund the artists for, because it isn't fair to refund some people 100% and other people 0% for that mess of a con. And there is also problems with WasabiCon blocking people who call them out for their problematic behavior online. So they blocked a ton of people. Yeah. And people were being very respectful with calling them out. I mean, it's not hard to see online criticism, I understand that. However, as a company, you have to receive some of that and take that as constructive feedback. So those were my favorite cons and my least favorite cons of 2025. To recap, my top favorites were SakuraCon in Seattle, Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, LeakyCon, which travels around, CoveCon in Vancouver, Washington, KomoriCon in Portland, Oregon. My least favorite 5 from worst to not as worse, I guess, is WasabiCon Portland, Anime Impulse Seattle, Fan Expo Portland, Geek Week PDX MiniCon, and Washington State SummerCon. If you'd like to hear more about any of these cons, I will link information to the cons down in the description below. I'll also be linking information to EnchantyCon since LeakyCon has recently rebranded to EnchantyCon. I hope all of you found this video informative. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I hope this video helps you decide what cons you may or may not want to go to in the future. There are so many cons out there, and it can be really hard to know which cons you want to go to and support and which ones you want to avoid like the plague. But hopefully this video can help you get some ideas of which ones are good and which ones aren't as good. If you would like to see any of my pictures from these cons, head on over to my Instagram. It is the same username as here, NerdyPotsie. I post tons of pictures from my Comic-Con experiences over on my Instagram. I post a little less on here, but I do post on shorts here occasionally. I need to get better at posting shorts on here. I hope all of you are having a great end to your 2024, and I will see all of you in my next video. Until next time, goodbye.